Hey now, welcome to America's leading Formula One podcast. I'm Brian Saperstein. This is Rob Vale, and we are at the dirty side of the track. Rob, what are we doing this week?
This week, we are going to be doing our crash course into Formula One. For all those new listeners, hopefully something to help educate them. So when they're watching the races, things make sense. And for the veterans out there, it'll be ammunition for them to poke fun at us when we make lots and lots of mistakes, and they can revel in pointing that out to us. So really looking forward to this. Best place to start is, what is Formula One? I know that's a stupid one to start with. It sounds like a stupid one to start with, but let's go there. Open cockpit, open wheel, single seater format. For the people over here in the US, it's going to look a lot like an Indy car, but we'll cover later why it's different. It's the highest class of single seater under the FIA, which is the governing body. And I'm not going to go into all the details of that. There's a perfectly good Wikipedia page for anybody that really wants to read up on the FIA. But essentially, it's been around since the 1950s, and it's kind of seen as the pinnacle for the driver. Race season has multiple races, which get called Grand Prix, which is much more sexy than to calling them races. And the number of races in a year has flexed loads down the years, and this year we're going to get the biggest one ever with 23 Grand Prix. Drivers get awarded points where they finish. They all get added up at the end of the year to decide who wins the whole thing. Down the years, we've had 34 different drivers that have won it. Max Verstappen, let's not mention the last race, but Max Verstappen is the latest winner. And you've got Lewis Hamilton and Michael Schumacher are the guys that are top of the pop at the moment, with 7 titles each. And just to bring it home, the US has actually had 2 champions, 1961 Phil Hill and 1978 Mario Andretti. And I think you were at a couple of those races, weren't you, Brian? You were kind of still a youngster those days.
I was. You know, I have a friend, it's a shocker that I have a friend, but a guy named Paul in Detroit got a huge speeding ticket the other day, and we now call him Andretti. So like the name Mario Andretti, and we mentioned this the other day, both his, Formula One champion, but also won an IndyCar championship, the Indy 500, I should say. Sorry. And so Andretti still resonates pretty strongly in the US. Now, Phil Hill, not as much from 61. And as Rob mentioned, the first Grand Prix was in 1950. So it's dating back a bit. 1950 was actually when I was graduating high school officially. And I'm excited to see this. But yeah, Andretti, a name that still carries very strongly here in the US.
Yeah, and I think it'd be good if Haas can carry on improving and kind of build out that American team. I think it'd be really nice to then get an American sat in the seat as well. I think that would be really something for the country to pull behind, right? But
I'm ready. I'm ready. Sure. Sign me up. I've got a PowerPoint. I'm ready. Sign me up. I don't think I fit in the car for a variety of reasons, but they could make an American version of the car. Like, Top Gear always had the American Stig, which is a little bigger. I want the American F1 cars. I want air conditioning. I want satellite radio. Yeah.
Last thing I'll hit on this one is just kind of the engines that these things run. I'm not going to go into every single one they've had. There's been huge numbers of changes down the years, but kind of over the last 25 years, we've had 3 major changes. So from about 96 through to 2006, they were 3-liter V10s. 2006, they went to 2.4-liter naturally aspirated V8s. And in 2014, we came to the turbocharged 1.6-liter V6 era. It's changing again next year, but we hit that last week. So please go listen to episode 5. No, the week before, in fact. Episode 5, go check it out if you want to hear how the cars are changing for 2022.
I mean, as you mentioned, the turbo hybrid era starting in 2014. That's kind of when they talk about some of the timings changing at courses and, the fastest laps. And it's just fascinating to me to hear the different sound of the engines. And I would argue, maybe I'm pissing people off, I think the current sound is not nearly as good as the high-pitched, higher rev whine of the cars prior. And actually in our lead-in on Dirty Side of the Track, because we're purists, the car you hear is not a turbo hybrid, but rather one of those older cars. And it's just, when I grew up, that's the sound I associate with Formula One, is the just bellow of that larger, naturally aspirated, humongous engine. And I miss that a little, but I'll live.